Dogs on Demand on Facebook and Instagram. Brought to you by Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lenders of the Georgia Bulldogs. We love Southeast Mortgage when it comes time for you to finance or refinance your home. Check out Southeast Mortgage. The good folks there will help you in any way they possibly can. Go to southeastmortgage.com/UGA and you'll be connected with a great team. Just as great as the University of Georgia football team that's out on the field every Saturday. Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. Good to have you in here on for some Dawg Talk on a Monday. Quite an eventful weekend of college football just occurred, and we're going to talk a little bit about Georgia's big win over Vanderbilt, 55-0, in the game Saturday at Sanford Stadium. And then we're going to look around the SEC and around the nation to talk about some things going on in college football. A lot of undefeated teams went down to defeat this past Saturday, including, of course, that big game up in Knoxville, Tennessee, where Tennessee knocked off number 1 Alabama at that time, or number 2 Alabama, I guess, at that time. And so quite an eventful weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we're going to talk a little bit about University of Georgia, catch you up on some things concerning the Bulldogs on this Monday evening. If you have a comment or a question or something you want to say about our Bulldogs, you can jump in here and give us a comment, and we'll be happy to share with what you're having to say. And if you have a question, we'll try our very best to answer it. Sometimes we get them right. Sometimes we don't get them so right, but we'll try our best to give you all the information you need as we talk about the University of Georgia. Our Bulldogs on the field, undefeated now, 7-0 on the season, and big win again Saturday over the Commodores. Well, let's talk a little bit about recruiting. A big recruit, big get yesterday for the University of Georgia, Ryan Puglisi. Now, I'm probably butchering. I couldn't find the correct pronunciation. Maybe I'm getting it. Maybe I'm kind of close to it. Puglisi, Puglisi. I'm sure by the time his career at the University of Georgia is over, we'll all know how to pronounce his name. But Ryan Puglisi, he's a 2024 quarterback prospect. He's a 3-star recruit and probably headed his way to a 5-star recruit, according to those in the recruiting services. He's a 2024 prospect, not a member of the next class, but the class following that. He made his announcement to commit to the University of Georgia on Sunday. He becomes the first quarterback prospect to commit to Georgia since Gunnar Stockton did so way back in January of 2021. What do we have? Yeah, we're good. Okay. My producer is making motions at me, so hopefully we're good. He becomes the first quarterback to commit to Georgia since Gunnar Stockton back in January of 2021. Puglisi plays high school football for Avon Old Farms Academy in Avon, Connecticut. Now, this is the same school that produced the current starting quarterback for the University of Miami, Tyler Van Dyke. Cool. Rusty Manziel of 247 Sports made this comment about Ryan Puglisi. He said he can throw a baseball 95 miles per hour, so he may be a dual sport athlete at the University of Georgia. The baseball team, our coach at the University of Georgia for our baseball team says, what? 95 miles an hour? He also throws a football. He's thrown a football 70-plus yards, and he's still only 16 years old. That's right, 16 years old. He can throw it 95 miles per hour plus in baseball, throw a football 70-plus yards. A lot of people think that this could be a top 3 or 4 quarterback prospect in the 2024 class as he continues to grow in his ability in that position. So that's kind of wild. Ryan Puglisi committing to the University of Georgia on Sunday night. Now, the University of Alabama also has made an offer to Ryan Puglisi, but Georgia won that contest and recruiting. Now Ryan has committed to the University of Georgia. Now, talking about a little bit about the rankings for the 2020 recruiting classes. Alabama now has number one recruiting class, rated the number one recruiting class for 2023, followed by Georgia. Georgia's number two now in the 2023 rankings, recruiting for the recruiting class. Notre Dame, number three, followed by Oklahoma, Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Florida, Clemson, and Tennessee. So Georgia with a big get in the recruitment, and they got a couple of guys last week, flipped a guy back from California, an athlete from the state of Georgia. So the things continue to go well on the recruiting trail for the University of Georgia for the next recruiting class and for 2024 as well. Well, Georgia again winning over Vanderbilt. It was homecoming day at the University of Georgia this past Saturday. We were there in the stadium. It was a beautiful sight. One of the neat things that happened on homecoming day is that there's a heritage band. Former band members of the Georgia Redcoat Marching Band were invited back to form an alumni band. And it was pretty impressive. About 400 band members, majorettes, flag team, that kind of thing was on the field for before the game, the Georgia game with Vanderbilt. Quite impressive. The oldest former member of the Georgia Redcoat Band was someone who graduated from the University of Georgia back in the early 1950s. She was there, and the guy who came the furthest to be a part of the alumni band on Saturday was a guy who came from Thailand. Now, of course, he's an American. He's stationed in Thailand, I suppose, or has a business there, or he may live there. But he was back, so that was quite impressive. And it was very impressive what the University of Georgia did on the football field. Georgia winning 55-0 over the Commodores. It marked Georgia's seventh straight win to start the season. Georgia now 7-0. They continue to be number one in the AP poll. Now they're number one also in the coaches poll, the coaches 25 poll. Oklahoma comes in at number two in those polls, while Michigan now is the number four team in the country. And now, according to the AP poll, Alabama has dropped to number six following its loss to Tennessee. It's 52-49 loss to Tennessee. And now the Volunteers are the new number three team in the country after their first win over Alabama since 2006. So you have Georgia, followed by Ohio State, and then you have Michigan, and you have Tennessee, and Alabama now the number six team in the country in those polls. After Georgia over Vanderbilt, and we kind of left a little early after Georgia was way up on the Commodores. Driving home, we were able to find the play-by-play for that Alabama-Tennessee game. And then I watched some of the replay of it on television. Boy, was that ever a burn barner. Who would have ever thought that Tennessee would score 52 points on Alabama and vice versa? Who would have ever thought that Alabama would score 49 points on Tennessee? So where was the defense in that game? Two high-powered offenses. It was something. Again, Georgia winning over Vanderbilt. It marked the second straight shutout over Vanderbilt. Last year, Georgia beat Vanderbilt 62-0. This year, 55-0. Stetson Bennett had a pretty good day. 2 touchdown passes, 289 yards, 289 yards. The Georgia defense limited Vanderbilt to just 150 total yards. Now, amazing. To limit an offense in NCAA football at level to 150 total yards. It is Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt came into the game actually with a win 3-2 on the season. But Georgia able to get a big win. And Stetson Bennett had a good day. Washington was just a monster, and he was marvelous. He was a marvelous monster. He had the best day of his career, caught 4 passes for 78 yards, and just amazing. Made some, just tremendous. Darnell Washington had a great day. Arik Gilbert has some issues, had some troubles getting on the field for the University of Georgia, loved by his teammates. He had a pretty productive day as well, catching his first career touchdown pass as a Bulldog. And when he caught that pass, and as he was coming off the field, Arik Gilbert was just mobbed by his Georgia teammates. They love him. They care about him. They're pulling for him. It was really something to see the response of the Georgia Bulldogs to the touchdown by Arik Gilbert. Georgia outgained Vanderbilt 579 yards, 579 yards offense for Georgia on Saturday, and 50 yards for the Commodores. Georgia scored on its 4 of 5 drives, and Georgia had 11 different receivers catching passes during the game, and 6 different Bulldogs scored touchdowns on Saturday against Vanderbilt. So it was a good win, good day for the University of Georgia, continuing to play strong and do strong. Now, Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett was pulled in the second half. Carson Beck came on in the fourth quarter. And I tell you what now, Carson Beck looked very, very good when he came into the ball game. The 6'4", 215-pound Carson Beck, third-year sophomore from Jacksonville, was 8 of 11 in passing for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also had a 13-yard carry in the fourth quarter. So Carson Beck looked good. Looked extremely good on the field for Georgia in the fourth quarter. So, it was a kind of topsy-turvy weekend outside of Sanford Stadium. In Sanford Stadium, everything went as planned. But outside Sanford Stadium, it was kind of interesting what happened in college football over the weekend. I did some perusing about what some folks thought about Saturday, and now their own personal rankings. For instance, Georgia Bulldog defensive end David Pollock, he says now that Tennessee should be, in his opinion, the number 1 team in the country. David Pollock says he thinks that Tennessee's 52-49 home win over Alabama is the best win in the country this year. I love David Pollock, but I would beg to differ. What about that Georgia opening win against Oregon? And that Oregon has gone on that game to run the table in their schedule, and they are almost a top 10 team. So, the Georgia Oregon grows in impressiveness as Oregon continues to have a good season. But David Pollock says he thinks after the end that Tennessee should be number 1. Now, they're not in the polls, in the AP poll or the coaches poll or any other poll that I have seen, but they now are in the top 4 in college football. Kirk Herbstreit has his top 6. He says that Alabama now is the number 6 team in the country, followed by Clemson, Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines, the Georgia Bulldogs, number 3, Tennessee, number 2, and Ohio State, number 1, according to Kirk Herbstreit of ESPN. Aaron Murray says that here's his top 10. He says that the USC Trojans are number 10, number 9, TCU Horned Frogs, number 8, Alabama. Aaron Murray has Alabama at number 8, followed or preceded by number 7, Ole Miss, the Rebels at number 7, UCLA at number 6, Clemson at number 5, Michigan at number 4, Tennessee at number 7, Georgia at number 2, and Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country, according to Aaron Murray. So those are some of the personal opinions of these folks as to who should be the top teams in the country. Georgia still there in the official polls, personal polls as well, but everybody has their own opinion about who should be number one, who should be in the top echelon of college football. Everybody's been kind of clamoring. Well, not everybody, but some folks, many folks, have been kind of clamoring for UGA and Tennessee. That game up on November the 5th. People have been kind of clamoring a lot, for this game to be a night game. Now, Georgia has not had a night game this year, a 7:30 game, but apparently that's not going to happen for UGA and Tennessee. CS will be carrying the game. They get the first pick of all SEC games. Now, this was per their contract, which was signed back in the 90s. But CBS gets the first pick of SEC games each week. And we're at 3:30. Their first pick is always a 3:30 game. CBS gets one night game a year. And we'll be checking on that. All right, we're going to take a break and